Hee-hoo.
Intro to podcast 210 include the hee-hoo.
Ha-ha.
That's all being included, Barry.
The fushnog.
And that as well. It's episode 210.
That's a nice number.
Episodes. Yeah, 210.
What's with the issue there, though? What's the issue number?
Issue 34. There's been 34 issues of Garden Culture magazine.
Oh, is that what that is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Big up you, Eric. Hey, you clever little bastard.
Hey, if you're not from Liverpool, you won't get this, but you remember walking around town and here, big issue! Big issue! Remember?
The big issue still does it now.
And does the Echo Man still do it? Echo!
No.
No, they used to stand on the corner street shouting
I don't
Echo.
need the Echo, that's full of bad news.
It's just all news is full of bad news, isn't it? There's no positive shit anymore.
It's only this news that's good news.
Here we are, the positive news for the people. Positive people news.
The growing news.
You know what?
We're growing.
Well, yeah, growing news.
Yeah. Growing news.
So last week I uploaded the podcast, first one in a while, and I listened to the first sort of minute just to make sure the quality was good and it was uploaded okay.
Felt alien.
And you know what? We just sounded like, welcome back to podcast. It's 209 and yeah, we're back. We sounded like I thought I was about to listen to it like, yes, we're back, 209, B and Steve back in the building, and we just start like, COVID.
Yeah,
it's a bit weird, isn't it? So we're gonna redo it. We're gonna do if you don't listen to the intro from last week, skip 5 minutes, get into the podcast, and pretend this is us back. So it's podcast 210. We are actually excited to be back with me
in the building.
Steve.
And
Barry.
Wants me to say B, but it just sounds fucking cheesy.
Radio and podcast
me,
is
Steve,
a little bit.
B.
Me, Steve, and me, B. See?
Barron's
you can really hear that chewing, you know.
Can you?
Right, really hear that chewing. Minty fresh breath.
Swallowing it.
Dirty boy. That's disgusting. What are you doing? Well, if you want to see, then you'll have to go and watch it on YouTube, won't you? I have to watch this episode on YouTube because we're not live.
What's this episode about then, Steve?
So, first of all, YouTube people, we're not live. When it gets uploaded, though, I'll be watching with you all. We'll be doing a premiere. And if you want to ask your questions, I'll be commenting the answers, or what I think of the answers anyway, in the sections. So, this is podcast 210. The intro's going to go here. And we'll be back in a minute. Go make yourself a cuppa. What biscuits do you want, Barry?
I'm on a diet.
Ginger nuts.
Yeah, just telling everyone. I'm on a diet, mate.
Right. Intro here.
All good? Ready to go? Turn my voice up a little bit. Oh, got that everyone watching, the whole family.
Are you ready to go? Are you built a beer in the house that I built, in the booth that I built?
I know people tune in every Sunday to listen, but even when business is good, we still manage to do the podcast. NPK.
So, Barry, you're on a diet.
Don't listen to talk about it.
Why did you not
talk about it? What's this podcast about? Garden review, isn't it? That's what it is. Let's just get on with the fucking podcast here.
Are you hungry?
Don't talk about my lifestyle.
Are you hungry?
Yeah, I'm starving.
Is that why you don't want to talk about it?
Let's just crack on.
So let's crack on before you start eating the bush behind them. So it is a garden culture review this week for podcast 210. Garden culture during the lockdown skipped an episode because there was nobody to print it, nobody to distribute it. Tough times, but they've only missed one episode, or one edition. So the back, garden culture, plant steering. As always, great edition for this month, or this. They produce it every couple of months, don't they? And once again, very good edition. But rather than going through, what we have been doing with our garden culture reviews is going through every article and sort of skipping over them. And there's great articles in it. It's a good magazine for a wide range of people. But the people who listen to our podcast are interested in certain aspects of what's in this magazine. So from now on, we're going to sort of skip the keeping bee colonies alive, even though that is really important, and it was a great article. We're going to skip some of the growing beetroots in your back garden, because even though that is really important, it's we grow indoors. This is an indoor hydroponic growing podcast. And
We do like talking about growing outdoors, though, you know.
yeah, we do. Well, we will do. But because we just skip over, like, let's say there's 15 articles, we just go over them briefly, don't we? So there's some really good ones. We've got 3 for this one, and then we're going to go into a bit of detail on each one and provide some good value. So first of all, did anybody go to the Product Earth Expo and Hydro Expo? Product Earth and Hydro Expo. It was last summer in August. You went. We went. We had the booth next to Garden Culture magazine. We did. Funnily enough. And it was really good. Really enjoyed myself. Great weather. Absolutely some of the best weather we've had all summer. And that now, though, this summer is not happening for obvious reasons.
Finished.
No, nothing.
This year's finished.
Summer. All that's happening is kayaking down canals. That's like the highlight of this summer.
We can't even get to Wales, can we, lad?
No, it's heavy. But the Feed Yourself Expo, it is the 27th and 28th of February, and they say it's an initiative to help people understand about self-reliance and how to grow their own. So
I think after this fucking big drama, mate, I think everyone should be like doing a bit of growing outdoors or indoors just to be self-sufficient.
I do as well. Well, we're looking at the articles that we're looking at today is first up by Doug Jacobs on crop steering. We've got Martina Kroll she's got an article called A Planetary Reset Button. And then Everest Fernandez, he talks about heat and the different types of heat that you can get and thinking differently about heat as well.
Wouldn't that be great, though? A reset button on the world.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But they're the articles that we're going to get into. Feed Yourself Expo, 27th to 28th of February. There'll be more information coming in partnership with Garden Culture magazine. Now, before we move on to the articles, Barry, we have a very important job to do.
What?
We need to shout out the partners.
Who's going to shout out me one day?
You shout yourself out enough.
Someone else should shout me out, though.
Barry!
I'm going to phone CANNA and say to them, listen, I need you to shout me out.
Yeah. Where?
I don't know. I just need you to.
What if they ring and just say, Barry,
I'll say it.
shout out.
Say it's not good enough.
I want the world to
I want my name on the 5-litre boost. That's what I want.
I can just see, we really do need better mic stands. We're going to get better mic stands.
It's got a fucking mind of its own, look at it.
We need better mic stands. We're going to get Yellow Tech mic stands, the bee's knees. We're going to get them.
We are in the process of about...
rejigging. We're going to have a rejig.
We're going to have a right rejig.
Yeah.
But it's just hard at the minute because you can't go and buy nothing anywhere to rejig anything.
No,
so
we're going to make our wall beautiful.
It's going to look a little bit different.
Yeah. So, first partner, CANNA Nutrients. It is
phenomenal.
Very good feed. And if you're a new listener and you've been doing it, whether you're a new listener or an old listener, if you're a new
listener and you're a new grower,
CANNA Nutrition is the only feed you need.
Standard that you will be on CANNA.
Yeah. Even without us saying it, you will be naturally driven to CANNA. That is a bit weird, that, isn't it? Why does every new grower start with CANNA?
Because you say it like that, but even growers of 20, 30 years are using CANNA.
Yeah. But
some of them, they drift off and then they always come back.
A lot of them come back to especially the base nutrients.
Yeah, especially the base nutrients. Even if they drift off additives, the base nutrient still fires through.
Yeah.
You know why?
It's consistent.
Because it's the best.
Yeah. pH stability. I think a lot of people miss out on the very simple fact of pH stability.
Cheap.
You know you're getting the same time in, time out.
Cheap. You need to say it again.
No.
Say it.
You sound like a bird.
You say it.
It is
cheap, like the budget.
On budget. So
when I say it's cheap, I don't mean it's a cheap product. I mean it is cheap.
Yeah, for what it does.
For what it does.
You can actually get cheap air nutrients, but then you have to buy a pH pen and pH up and pH down, so they work out more expensive.
And the shit.
So this one seems like a bit of a shout out to CANNA's base nutrients.
Yeah.
Who uses, like, I want some more interaction, you lazy bastard people that listen, absorb all the information, and don't answer any of my questions. I've got questions for you. You should be following at NPK Live on Instagram. Fire in your messages. Answer the questions. What base nutrients are you using? Why? We recommend CANNA A and B. what do you think of it? Let us know. Who's the next partner?
You know what I'm going to say?
Who?
SANlight.
SANlight LED.
Just because at the minute they are like
the next 8
talk
to 12 weeks.
of everywhere to go. It's SANlight, this SANlight, that SANlight, this SANlight, that everything. They are absolutely fucking nailing it.
And there's been no supply issues as well. Touch wood.
Touch wood.
There's been no supply issues, which has been very, very good. Yeah. Like, they could have caught them out very easily. We've had no issues getting hold of SANlights. No. We've got M30s, the small little propagation lights.
Q4s, 5s, 6s.
And then you've got don't be caught out though by Q3L or Q3, L it's called, isn't it? Q3W, Q4W, Q5, Q6W, and then there's another, basically you can get them spaced out differently, so you can get them spaced differently to achieve a different spread of light. So don't get caught out. Make sure you get your proper SANlight, and if you're not sure, speak to the shop or get in touch via email with us, and we can help you pick the right SANlight for you. Don't forget the dimmers as well. A lot of people are putting SANlights in, and because they are so good, if you put them in under young plants, they can maybe put too much light over the top.
It's
so
not just a dimmer though, is it? It's a sunrise, sunset
feature, and 4 levels of dimmable.
Of intensity.
Dimmable intensity,
Dimmable intensity, I like that.
You do come
dimmable intensity with the sunrise and sunset feature.
Yeah, I like it.
And they've just brought out the new daisy chain lead. I don't know whether it's new, but we've just got it now, which is, I think they do a meter lead now, they do a 2 meter lead.
Yeah, good. So SANlight, we're going to be going on about them, especially over the summer. They'll be getting more of a shout out in terms of partnerships. They'll be getting a pushed promotion, especially in the summer, because that's when they're needed the most. Don't need to get expensive climates, air conditioning units. Just use SANlights. Next up, we have AutoPot watering systems. Unfortunately, for the shops, the wholesalers and manufacturers that are listening, AutoPot event festival has been cancelled for this year.
Sadly.
Obviously, I'm gutted. But they've got the new 5mm AutoPot valve coming out very soon.
Is it 5mm?
5mm. He's been using
What was it originally, 2mm?
The very, very original one was, I'm going to get it wrong, but I think it was something like 2.5mm. Then it's gone to 3.5mm, and now it took it to 5mm. And the flood speeds are much quicker. The chances of blocking are dramatically reduced. And he's just improved the system massively. Nice. So a bigger range of growers can use it without having any issues whatsoever. Nice. So AutoPot, absolutely killing it. They've also, if you don't know, they've also got the Pro. So everyone knows the AutoPot Flexi tanks. That's what 90% of people in the industry use. But they've also got the Pro tanks, which are double-skinned, thicker, white. They've got a load of features that are just really helpful. Measurements from the inside. So as you're filling it up, you can see the measures on the inside rather than looking at the outside. Sticking your finger on, trying to see the shadow on the inside.
They have loads of fitments on the top and that as well, don't they?
Loads of fitments, yeah. So you can use it. There's just a lot you can do with it. Really good tank. And what it is, though, because it's such a good, well-built tank, it does take a little bit of effort to put it together. One person can do it. Jason's done it on a video, and it can be done. But if you just don't want to struggle, just 2 people, just to spread it out, get the poles together, goes up in a breeze. Yeah. But it can be done by one person as well. But the reason that it's a little bit tricky is because it's so tight, so well put together. Once it's up, it's staying up. Nice. So AutoPot, thank you for being a partner.
Yeah, man.
We have CANNA filters.
Urban.
Also, a very important aspect of your garden when you're in the summer. They have everything you need for your extraction: intakes, outtakes, EC, AC, transformers, dimmers, all kinds.
What's the new one? SANlight?
The SANlight, yeah. They've got that, which we haven't used that yet, but
we've had it on the show. But
we've had it on the show, yeah. We did it before lockdown. We did a show and we showed everyone.
That's part of the rejigging that we will have.
We're going to get it up on
the wall. Models to show you what it does.
Yeah, I like that.
We're going to have all that.
EC, AC fans. Who's made the switch to EC? It seems like it's starting to sort of take hold. AC fans to EC fans. EC uses slightly less electricity, more power, more controllable features, so that you can control them in 1% increments rather than having to use step controllers for the ACs, and just generally better power consumption. So if you are LED and the main reason for using LED is power conservation, then the next step is to start changing all your fans to EC fans, and that'll also give you savings on the electricity as well. Can Originals, CANNA, everything that you could need for extraction and intakes. Go and check them out. Next up, we have BudBox tents. Now, we gave them a big shout out last week, and next week's podcast is actually on the partners in general. So we're going to go through CANNA and AutoPot and all the partners and go into depth about new products, existing products, what they do that is useful for people in the summer, and maybe some new features that you might not have heard of either. So we're going to be talking about the partners next week. But BudBox are just on the ball. I was going to do this next week, but I want to
do it then.
I want to do it now.
No, do it next week. Let's do it next week.
Okay, I'll do it next week.
Do it next week.
But it's an example of their attention to detail.
That other people, that the end consumer can oversee.
Oh yeah, definitely that the consumer can oversee. So
don't tell them.
All the partners,
keep them in suspense.
All the partners are great. We have constant talks, and we talk about what they want to promote and what they're doing, new products, blah blah blah. But BudBox have there's just structure, massive structure to it, and they say this is what's happening at this time of year. Here's the evidence. We make this claim. Here's the evidence. And do this and do that. I'm going to go into more detail next week.
I call the science behind it.
I like the science. Well, I like the fact that I don't have to sit here and say their white reflective material is the best reflective material. And some people should turn around and go, well, how do I know? Why should I believe you? Why should I believe them? They've supplied me with the evidence, the scientific tests to say we are the most reflective white material in tents that you can get. There's the evidence. So don't just believe us. There's the test that we did. Yeah, and they provide that for nearly everything.
Don't tell them too much then, because we're going to do all this next week.
Well, BudBox tents. If you're looking to take your tents to the next level, you'd buy BudBox. Yeah. They've got silver and white. They will always want you to get white because they actually brought silver out after white. And we'll talk about that next week as well. But white tents, they're called BudBox Pro. That's what you want to be looking at to take your tents to the next level.
We're not going to have a podcast next week.
Oh, we will. There's plenty. Trust me. There's a big paper over there. And because I'm good on my planning as well. We're well
big shout out to BudBox then. Who's next?
Gavita.
Yeah, man.
Gavita lighting. Now, there's been a couple of people have messaged. They're Hawthorne. They're owned by Hawthorne, and they're taking over the industry. Now, that is a big talking point for next week. We're going to get right into Gavita, right into Hawthorne Gardening, and we're going to explain why we've taken Gavita on as a partner. But I'll tell you very quickly in a nutshell why. In a nutshell, because I've got to shout them out. I've got to tell people. I've got to tell people why I've taken Gavita.
You're going to tell them next week.
I'm not. Okay. I'll reword this so I don't spoil next week. It's because
there's
it's the
a
best
method
light
in his madness of why he's took Gavita. That's it.
Number one, and not this is
we're going to go on now. One, number two, number three, number four.
Number one, because in my opinion, it's the best double-ended HPS that you can get on the market today.
And that'll do. And if you want to know all the other reasons why, then tune in to next week's.
Did you know that Barry was the new editor of the podcast? He keeps everything in check, keeps you enticed for next week.
He'd just blurt it all out and just.
I hate that word.
Podcast.
Blurt. It's like a proper. It's a Scouse word for calling someone a tit, really, isn't it? You fucking blurt. Yeah, it's a horrible word. I would do though, yeah. I'm shit at keeping people in suspense. And last,
you just go right off track, don't you?
A little bit, yeah. I get
like
excited.
Like Brian.
And last, but by no means least, and the subject of today's podcast, Garden Culture magazine. Yeah. So we do a lot with Garden Culture, the best magazine in the world in terms of hydroponics, and just the owners are the best people you could ever meet. If you go to a UK show, make sure you go and speak to Eric and Celia, because some of the most knowledgeable, nicest people in the industry. And I did message him to try and come on this podcast, but he will tell me off for not giving him enough time. And that's it. There's the partners. Yeah, use them, abuse them. They're well made, so you can definitely do some abusing.
Okay, now
abusing in terms
this is a daytime podcast. You know?
Abuse in terms of the well made. You don't have to. You can stand on an AutoPot and it won't break.
Like getting sidetracked again.
Okay, so Doug Jacobs crop steering. What are you saying?
What page are we on?
You're on it. You're bang on it there, Basil.
To be honest, I let you read that one, didn't I? I didn't go into that. Everything that I read, you've done the articles on everything different.
I know, but well, that's good. What have you read?
I've read a few things in this. There's a
All
good,
right.
you know what I like, and I hope it happens, is that, where is it? Let's see what the proper name for it is.
What have you read? Oh, I know it. And you know what? I know article
Do you know
is.
50% of the bananas in the world
Yeah.
get wasted?
No.
Yeah, get on that.
Where did you read that?
In the back of the fucking book.
Oh.
There it is, look.
5
And there's actually, look,
ways.
50% of all bananas produced go to waste. And there's a company called Bananas who are changing that.
Oh.
And they're doing something.
They should be called Go Bananas.
Yeah, I read that little fact. I like it. To be honest, Eric, that's a belter what you've done there. I like that.
The facts at the back.
The facts, like, just little facts.
All right, so turn to the back of your Garden Culture magazine and
Just
read
a
them
little
facts.
fact, just a little fact. You should do more of them. You should do like 10 every week. I think there's...
He likes them because there was
There's
lots
5.
of pictures.
I like... No. You should put a crossword in it, though.
Ooh. Sudoku?
Sudoku. No, not Sudoku. That's fucking old man shite.
Nah,
No,
Sudoku
we want a crossword.
Crossword is old man shite. Sudoku's like the
A
new
crossword, then you enter it and you win something off Eric, and Eric can give something away then.
Oh, I like it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There you go, Eric. There's an idea right there. So, back to the front, Barry. You're
Wait
reading
there,
it backwards,
lad.
mate.
Wait, I know, but wait there was something else.
I know what you're looking for. You're looking for the green city, aren't you?
Yeah.
The city of green.
Is this? I haven't read it all, so I don't know too much. But that's it.
The forest city.
I don't know whether you can see it.
Hold it up to the camera.
I don't know whether you can see it, but
The forest city.
China.
Well, you need to get the
saying-
magazine if you want to read it
you
and
just
see
need
the
to get
pictures.
magazine. I think, is it downloadable, this magazine?
From the Garden Culture magazine, gardenculturemagazine.com.
See the way I just threw that in?
Oh, yeah.
So now they know.
That's fucking teamwork.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
But I'm going to have a good read of that probably twice, so it sinks in. But I do like it, though.
Who's the author? Top left.
Top
I know who it is. Top left.
left.
Top left.
Wolf. It's by Richie.
Rich Hamilton.
Rich Hamilton. I like it,
Good
Richie.
article.
Not a bad
To be honest,
article.
I didn't manage to get
I
to
like
it.
the pictures as well.
I've only read. I know the pictures are quite good. I'd be interested. That's from Job. Job's the graphic designer of Garden Culture.
So, who have you picked to
I've
talk about?
picked Doug Jacobs on crop steering. I've picked Martina Kroll, a planetary reset button, and Everest Fernandez, heat the basics.
Oh, it's going to have to fucking win it then. You tell me, I'll ask questions. Go on, I don't know much about all that.
Well, you've
I
just
say I
you know,
don't know much about all. Plans there and I do, but
you know what you've just done. You've picked out a good article that we're not going to talk about by Rich Hamilton that people should go and get the magazine to read.
yeah, but I'm definitely going to read that later.
I will as well. I needed to get in depth on these ones.
Plant steering then, Stephen.
So-
what is plant steering?
What do you think plant steering is without having read the article?
That's what when I'm in my car. That's what it sounds like.
Your car steering then, though, aren't
That's what it sounds like. Plant steering. I'm steering my car. So it's steering my car the same as steering my plant. So if I want to go left, I go left, and if I want to go right, I go right. If I want to go faster, I
It
go
is.
faster. If I want to go slower, I brake.
When you're driving, no, plant steering is you want a plant to do something, you steer it left, you steer it right. In some occasions, though, when you steer left, it'll affect something else. So when you go around the bend and you steer left too much, the back end can come out.
Yeah.
So then you have to steer right, drifting. So when you're going, it's actually counterintuitive, isn't it?
Oversteer.
Oversteer, understeer.
Because when you turn in, the back end comes round, and you've turned too much in the back.
But don't you put the wheel in the opposite direction to get
That's
you
the
back
counter,
to
yeah,
counter?
yeah.
So when you want your car
So
to go,
if you do in plant talk, if you do a hard left and you get a bit of oversteer, you've got to do a bit of understeer to get it back.
Yeah, exactly.
And feather the throttle.
feather the throttle. I'm getting Barry's sound effects going. So, steering your plant towards vegetative or generative growth by adjusting irrigation and climate to produce a desired response.
I know bits about it.
So, vegetative, when the lights are on 18 and 6, so you're producing vegetative growth. And he's called it generative growth, which is what we always call on the podcast fruiting or flowering.
Yeah.
And that's if you're on a light dependent plant, that will be your 12 hours of light, 12 hours of darkness. So you steer your plant by adjusting irrigation and adjusting the climate to produce a response from the plant. This is a good article because it makes you, a lot of the stuff you already do, but it tells you why you've done it. And it gives you a different angle of why you've done stuff. So one of the examples that he gives is increase the watering for vegetative growth, decrease watering for generative growth. So what he means is, he goes into a bit more detail.
Can I guess?
Go on.
You know, my plants start to get a little bit too tall.
I need to put your microphone up a little bit.
If my plants get a little bit too tall,
yeah,
but I think that they're going to start stretching like mad,
yeah,
decrease the amount of fluids that I'm giving them.
Yeah.
Just to try and stall them a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if I give them loads, they're just going to fucking love life and they've got access to everything. So what I'll do is I'll pull back a little bit and go, no, stay there, mate. Because I'm in charge. You just hold your fucking horses.
So when you want your car to go slower, you take your foot off the throttle.
Exactly.
Yeah. You give it a little bit less to do. Yeah. Nice.
Here's the better one. If you only want my car to go that far, I'll only put that much juice in it, that much petrol in it. Mm-hmm. If I give it too much petrol, it's going to go too far.
Because you're a stingy bastard. Yeah, I'll just put a $5 in. It's the van. Diesel.
I remember the last time I put a $5 in.
Oh, the $5 would get you nowhere in the van.
Fucking hell.
You got to put a bit more in. But what I'll be critical of the graph that he's put underneath it, because I've tried my best, and I could be the biggest idiot on the planet here, but I'm going to say it because I've tried my best to understand it. I do not know what he means by WC.
Toilet?
Well, that's what water closet. That's what it means.
Does it mean water cooler?
No, he definitely doesn't mean water cooler. I think the only thing I can think of is water concentration.
Where is it?
Plant steering, that graph right there. So if you've got the magazine.
Water control.
Let's have a little look at that.
Water control, decrease at night, stop time.
It's a little bit confusing, like, to be honest. But water control, does that make sense if it's water control?
Might do.
Water concentration, water control.
Well, I'd say
there should be an asterisk.
What I'd say is I control my water. If I want my plant to stretch like mad, I'll give it loads of fluids. Yeah. So I control what it gets.
Let me have another look at the graph and see what it looks like with water control. Water control up, water control down. Water concentration up, but then it says, the next bit says WC, decrease night, stop time.
Yeah, so water control decreases.
Yeah.
Water consumption,
that could be it.
Water consumption, but he's just done it. Is he American, this kid? Who is he?
He must be, because I don't...
Yeah, he mustn't know that on the fucking ladies' little fucking toilets.
It says water closet.
WC.
Yeah. So,
but water control or water consumption.
We get the idea. So what he's saying is decrease for increase from vegetative growth, keep it watered, and decrease watering for generative growth. But it is a little bit confusing. But I've translated it to mean increase the watering with little dry periods during veg, increase the dry periods for flowering. He also says, in that diagram, keep your EC low on veg and higher in flower. That's just standard, though, isn't it? Yeah. Like, you give it more feed when it's in flower. Yeah. This is a pretty good one. It's not something I've really tried. Keep your temperature of your substrate up in veg and keep it cooler in flowering, and that'll help. So warmer substrates, warmer media will produce more generative growth, more vegetative growth. Cooler media substrate temperatures will give you better generative growth, so more flowering, more fruits. That's an interesting one that I've never tried.
Never heard of it.
Irrigation. It's got 3 aspects to it. Now, this is really where plant steering comes into it. The amount of water, the frequency of watering, and the timing of your irrigations. So the amount of water, small shot or a big shot, do you give it 2 litres or do you give it 5 litres? The frequency of watering, are you watering once a day, once every 2 days, once every 3 days? And the timing of irrigations.
And them 3 factors are like the main things, aren't they?
Yeah. But I think the amount of water and how often you give it, people think about. I don't think a lot of people are thinking about what time am I giving the plant its water. So if you need to increase the dry period, you might not want to water them for the first 2 hours of the lights being on. If you want to increase the the time that there's amount of water in the pot. You want to feed them as soon as the lights come on, and maybe an hour or two before the lights go off as well.
I think that is standard that people will feed the plants as soon as the lights come on, because like getting up and it's like they've woke up, they're awake now.
But start to think about when you are watering. Also, consistency of timing. I think that's very important. So if you get in, if your lights come on at 6 o'clock in the evening and you feed at 6:30, if you do that consistently, I genuinely believe that the plants get used to it, and they know in their own plant circadian rhythms when they're going to get fed, and they're ready for it. So then if you're feeding at 6:30 and 10:30 and then 2:30 and then 6 o'clock in the morning,
random times,
I think it doesn't know where it's at, and I think it can slow down its metabolism. I haven't seen any signs about it, but I do genuinely think that the consistency of time is very important when you're watering. He also says that you can do things like small amounts of water at a high frequency with a low EC increases veg. So a small amount of water, very often with a low EC, is good for veg, but then increase the amount of water at a lower frequency with a high EC for generative growth in flowering. To me, and that's just normal. What normal, I was going to say what normal people do. Like there's weird.
Not what everyone does, but
what he does say is critical to test these to your specific plants, as there will be different responses. So each plant will react differently to your control, and so don't think that because you've turned a hard left on a Subaru and the back end came out, if you did that to a Mini, it's just going to stick to the floor and go straight. So not everything you do in different cars will have the same effect. Make sure you're keeping an eye on what's going on with your plant. So that's sort of irrigation with regards to crop steering. Then he goes on to talk about climate. So higher temperatures can produce more vegetative growth. Keeping the plant active with lower temperature slows growth. So that's not something that I've really thought about either. So this will definitely have something to do with humidity. So higher temperatures would mean that the air around the plant can potentially hold more water and produce more vegetative growth. So if it's a higher temperature, and this gets into a question that I still haven't answered, the production of stomata underneath the leaf. So higher temperatures, higher humidity, lower temperatures, lower humidity. Is there a set amount of stomata that the plant produces per leaf? Let's just, for argument's sake, let's say there's 1,000 stomata produced on a leaf genetically. Can you alter the amount of stomata a plant produces? If your humidity is really low and the plant's losing a lot of water, is the plant going to go, listen, I'm not going to produce any more stomata because I'm going to lose shitloads of water? If the humidity is really high,
can it produce more?
Is it going to produce more? Because it's like, I need to sweat, I need to transpire. And
if it's only got 1,000, no, I don't think it's going to increase to 2,000. I think it's just going to flush more out to the 1,000, isn't it?
Yeah, and maybe produce a better root system. Yeah, but that's an answer. That's a question that I have not got the answer to, and I've spoken to a few people, and one of my good friends in the industry as well. I asked him, and he was like, "You know what? It's one of the best questions I've ever came across, because no one talks about it. Can you affect stomata? Because what you do in the veg." So if you've got more stomata and you can increase the amount in veg, it'll have an impact to increase yields in flowering, because it can uptake more CO2. So you can increase yields with what you do in veg. Interesting, but I don't know the answer, and I do keep meaning to get into the research on it. But moving on, back on climate, the speed of change. Now this is an interesting one. The speed of change between day and night temperatures. So we all know, if you listen to the podcast long enough, we all know that if there's a big swing in temperatures, you're going to get big stretch. If there's a small swing in temperatures, you get small stretch. What Doug's saying is that the speed of the change is also significant. So if you literally, there's nothing you can do to stop a big swing, just if you can slow it down, then the stretch will slow. If there's if it's 28 degrees with the lights on and then 20 degrees with the lights off, and it's like instant, within 20 minutes, it's back down to 20 degrees. That's a big swing in a very short time. So the plants will stretch to get to do that. So that's a very interesting one. It's the speed of change. So what you would need is
you just need to put certain lights on timers to start dropping lights off.
Yeah, get an advanced controller.
On the 11th hour, if you're on like 12, let's say, on the 11th hour,
half of them off.
2 would go off. 20 minutes later, 2 would go off, just so the temperature slowly creeps down.
And this is a shout out to the sunrise sunset feature, especially with HPS. So Gavita have had it in for a long time in their controllers, the EC1, and they've got new controllers as well.
SANlight's got it as well.
Yeah, the sunrise sunset with SANlight. It's good, but because they're cool, it's not a massive impact. But some people want it.
Doesn't
HPS.
I could be wrong, but I'm gonna have to look into it. But doesn't that alter the light pattern?
So you can you could extend it by an hour with the sunset feature or the sunrise feature. It can have you can have a play. So rather than just lights on, lights off, you can have a play, and it's good. I don't think it's there for everyone. I think it's for people who like to experiment with the plants, like people who go, well, everyone says 12 hours for flowering. What about 14 hours? What will that effect have on my plant? I don't want them to be on full brightness for 14 hours. I want them to be on increase for the first hour, decrease for the last hour. Yeah. So I mean, for people to have a play, but with HPS, it's a big thing. Sunrise, sunset feature, your humidity, your VPD, vapor pressure deficit, is going to be stable. The swing between the high and the low temperature is going to be shorter because you're slowly increasing, slowly decreasing. And very important with HPS lighting. So that is something that I'll start looking at as well. Yeah. Increasing and decreasing humidity, that's going to have a massive impact on the veg time. In veg, you increase the humidity because it's got a smaller root system, and it definitely increases the vegetative mass. But in flower, you need to decrease humidity. Also, the number of air exchanges. So if you have a slower exchange in veg, quicker in flower, so slower air change, it impacts humidity. You get more vegetative growth. A bigger amount of air exchanges will allow you more generative growth and more flower and fruit production. Yeah. He says to watch the following. So this will have, when you're planting, we've just talked about irrigation and climate. Now they do sort of encapsulate a lot of things, but there's potentially 10 wheels. So if you add a wall full of steering wheels, then you could have 10 different aspects. And as you turn one, it'll affect 2 others. But then you turn those 2 and it'll affect 4 others. And you've got to be constantly turning the wheels to manipulate your plant to do what it wants to do. But what he's saying is when you start doing this, you need to watch what your plant does. So watch the root development speed. Keep an eye on the quality of the plant and its height. Keep an eye on the stem diameter. What about the leaf and the stem colour or the node spacing? The amount of time it takes for flowers to develop and how they fill out, plus your root zone, like the water concentration, your root zone, and the EC measurements in relation to your conditions. So what he means is, in hotter temperatures, reduce your EC. In colder temperatures, increase your EC.
We know that anyway, don't we? I think
it's all part
of crop steering. We've gone on about that before, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. We've done a whole plant steering podcast. The first person to mention to me was years ago, Peter Clausen from CANNA. He was the first person to mention plant steering to me. If you're interested in that, go back to one of the early podcasts. It's within the first 50, maybe the first 100. Look for the podcast title, Peter Clausen, and he talks about the steering wheels and goes into a lot more detail as well. So great podcast, that one with Peter. So I'm going to have a drink of water. The next one is by Cody Garrett, and he talks about microbial products. And I've got a few good things to say about microbials. You'll be happy to know, though, Barry.
I haven't read this article,
it's half a page of notes, so I won't be going on about microbes too long.
Did you just bring one bottle of water in?
This was the last one left.
Was it? Oh.
You had yours in the office.
Did I?
Yeah. You're doing well with your water consumption. What are you doing? High water consumption or low water consumption? Are you giving yourself a dry period or are you keeping yourself constantly wet? What's going on?
I'm not answering none of that. You dirty bugger.
Ooh, constantly wet. What are you looking at me like that for?
Oh, fucking horrible. I'm sorry about this. He gets away with himself.
You get in your little moods as well.
Him and his dad jokes. He's got belted dad jokes, you know.
Do you want to hear one?
No, don't.
Do you want to hear one?
No.
Why not?
Come on then.
A joke?
Laugh. Yeah, go on, make them laugh at that.
Oh, it's not my joke though.
Whose joke?
It's it came with it was a video, these WhatsApp videos, and it's an old man, and he's got this, he's crying. He's going, I can't believe it. Oh, I'm just so gutted. Oh, it's me mate Gav. He died at the weekend. Oh, it was just completely unexpected. He had, I think what it was is he overdosed on the antacid tablets. He just took an overdose and he was dead the next day. I just can't believe it. Gav is gone.
Yeah.
Gav is gone.
You're an
I don't know if they have Gaviscon in America.
But
Gaviscon's an antacid and it's fucking, it tickled me. I do love a good dad joke. Send us in your best dad jokes. I love them. The rest of them don't. They just get off.
Something wrong with him. We all just look at him like he's a weirdo in the office and walk out.
What do you mean, like? You all say I'm a weirdo. Cody Garrett, Microbial Products. Good article. I'm going to stop saying this. Good articles. They're all good articles. Microbials. You'll be interested in this one. No. So, what he says is, and I'm
warning you now if you make me fall asleep.
People actually watch you to see if I make you fall asleep. Listen, they say, I watch Barry just to see if he falls asleep. But you know what they also say with it? Don't stop talking science because it's good.
It is.
So Barry just doesn't like to get involved.
The 10% of science lovers that are watching.
I should do a thing on Instagram, shouldn't I?
You should do your own.
People. Fuck off you. The abundance of microbes that are on the market today. Confusing.
So, they've just come from nowhere, these little critters, haven't they?
You know, one of the first microbes I used was Hydroponics, top heavy crop, triple F, which is fully formed flowers, and Gavita. Phenomenal range of bacterias and just brilliant. I'd get out there and use them, definitely. Advanced Nutrients, they've had their bacterial product out for a while, but I am dubious of certain products and certain manufacturers. We did the PGR tests, didn't we? And that was very straightforward-ish and very easy to find out. And on that note, I have got to do a PGR. We'll start next week's podcast with the PGRs, the people who passed, and maybe the people who didn't. So we'll shout that out next week as well. We'll conclude that. One of the next things I wanted to move on to that was looking at microbes. So there's a lot of people starting to produce microbial products. And how do we know, other than doing side-by-side testing, what's in those products? How do we know that it's not just liquids that stimulate plant growth and they're charging a large amount and calling it microbes? How do we know the shelf life? How do we know how long they're lasting from when they're manufactured to when the grower uses them? So there's the bit of testing I want to start doing on microbes, but it's very expensive. So I'm going to try and call in some favors and just do some very rough testing. Now, the benefits of using microbes are increased yields, the speed of growth, plant resilience, drought resistance, and a lot of others. But what Cody's saying is that overuse of microbes can be just as bad as over-fertilization, and they can have a negative effect on plant and soil health. So reading through this article, he was saying that microbe nutrition in terms of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, it's quite easy, isn't it? We know what we've got. It's most of the time it's chemicals, sometimes it's organics, but we know what it is. It's a very finite thing. You're applying a fertilizer and you know what the results are. But then you start messing with living life. You're messing with bacteria and mycorrhiza, and we don't fully understand what they do to a plant. We definitely don't understand when you use one bacteria and a mycorrhiza, what interaction do those two have? What about when you use 5 bacteria and 2 mycorrhiza products? What about if you've got a product that's got 20 different bacteria in it? How do they compete? Most definitely, they're not all on a level playing field. Some will outcompete the others. Yeah. So these products, where's the testing to show that we've got 20 bacteria in our product and they are all brilliant for plant growth?
And they are all in there.
And they are all in there. But how do we know that? Let's say there's Bacillus subtilis. A lot of people have heard of that one as a bacteria. What's the likelihood that that's such a powerful bacteria that it completely dominates, it proliferates, it takes control of roots and all? Yeah, just there's no food for the rest, so they all die off and you're left with Bacillus subtilis. So you've just spent £100 on product amazing X full of 20 microbes, and then there's another product which has just got Bacillus subtilis in it for £20, and they both do the same thing. Do you know what I mean? That's what I want to get into. That's what I want to know. Who's making money? Who's buying cheap microbes, saying that there's loads of them in there, and putting a good microbe in there, knowing that it'll outcompete it and charge them more? So I want to get into that. Now, the growers have got to be really careful because I don't understand it. I very much doubt, unless the people manufacturing it, who are microbial experts or biologists, I don't think they'll understand it. So that's what we want to get into. Have you heard of nitrogen fixing bacteria?
Barry! Have I heard of it?
Nitrogen fixing bacteria.
Yeah.
Now,
All that.
bacteria. Make a bacteria sound like a car.
No.
Come on.
Doesn't sound like a car.
How can we make
It's in a bottle.
How can we make bacteria sound like a car?
Make it sound like Brian.
How? Have you heard of nitrogen fixing bacteria?
I have, yeah.
Good or bad? Just your random opinion.
I've never used it. Dead honest.
Ever used Azos?
No.
No. Ever used Great White?
No.
Ever used Charge?
Yep.
That has got, I believe it's got something that's capable of fixing nitrogen. I might be wrong, but I think I'm trying to get you to use some of it. That has got something that will help nitrogen fixation. But nitrogen fixing bacteria take atmosphere nitrogen, which is N2. It's the most, it's like 79% of the atmosphere, N2, and they change it to ammonia so that the plant can uptake it. Last summer, I was reading a book and it was talking about nitrogen fixing bacteria. And what it was saying is they're great in fields, legumes, they need lots of nitrogen. They use it a lot. But then if we bring it indoors, what they were saying is if you've got nitrogen fixing bacteria, they will stop working as soon as there's a good supply of
nitrogen.
Nitrogen. Yeah. So this is something very interesting that basically I wanted to take up this article.
So it's a Bosch product, but
Bosch
it's just
product.
shit.
Indoors. Yeah, because
it could be. We're not saying it is, but it could be.
If you use nitrogen fixing bacteria in organic growing at the early stages, you'll do really well. And then, because then you don't need to always dose it up. It'll proliferate in the root zone, and you only need to apply it once or twice. If you use it in cocoa at very early stages before you've even added your A and B, then it'll help the plant take atmospheric nitrogen and give it a good boost in nitrogen. But as soon as you start adding your A and your B, and your Mighty Growth Enhancer or your Rhizotonic,
it sort of knows it's not needed.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's like, hang on a minute,
there's
a fucking shit ton of liquid nitrogen coming in here. Why do I need to do any work? And the bacteria will stay there.
Yeah.
As soon as you run out of nitrogen, it'll go, there's no nitrogen, I'm going to work.
Well, maybe it's good then. Because before you get a nitrogen deficiency, it's there to kick back in and work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
But
that's why I'm here.
How often do you get nitrogen deficiencies when you don't make a mistake? In terms of most people get deficiencies when you overwater.
For the new people who are starting, who can't steer the plant, who are going to make mistakes, and everyone makes mistakes, then maybe it's good for them growers.
Good. I just wanted to
the
point
ones
out,
who are hands-on and can steer their plants and can direct and can look at the plants
at the beginning.
Then yeah.
But it's just something I wanted to point out is that bacteria are very intelligent. They know, or there's some sort of understanding of when they're needed and when they're not needed. Yeah. And if you think that you're going to apply loads of bacteria,
so it could just be a waste
nitrogen,
of money for a lot of people, couldn't it? To think, oh, I'm using a great A and B, but that sounds like a Bosch product, and it's a bacteria and a microbe or whatever it is, and I want to put it in. I'm putting it in, and it's really not doing nothing.
I've just learned that for nitrogen. How many other elements? So we use phosphorus solubilizing bacteria like Mammoth P. Now, do those bacteria know if there's enough phosphorus? We're not needed. We don't need to solubilize it. It's a bit different with phosphorus because it does become locked up, and it is a hard nutrient to get out the cocoa or out your soil. But we need to start thinking differently about bacteria. We're playing with a living organism, and it's not as simple as just adding fertilizer. There's literally 3 sentences here, Barry, so I'll wake you back up in a minute. There's another area of bacteria. They're called rhizobacteria. That's your Bacillus subtilis. And your B. megatherium. They're the microbes for making phosphorus and potassium. So you've got specific microbes, do specific jobs. And then we have Bacillus amelioquafaciens. Now, I call it, that's the way I say it. That's absolutely the wrong way to say it, but I can't figure out how to say amelioquafaciens. And you also have Bacillus coagulans, which provide root protection. And
where did they fucking make these names?
I have no idea.
Why can't they just call it something fucking normal? Something that you can go into the shop and say, all right, mate, have you got that banana?
Why do you keep saying banana? B, the Bacillus makes sense because...
why can't you call it like...
Bacillus Dave.
No, B2. B4, B5, B6, B7, B22.
Well, it could get mixed up with bombers, the B-22 bomber, and B6 is a bit.
Advanced Nutrients have got 22B, haven't they?
Yeah.
No, but you could call it something like that.
But where did where did coagulants come from? That makes me think it's
some
coagulate.
Absolute fucking helmet who works in a fucking laboratory and hasn't been out the door for fucking years.
Wanted to apply his Latin.
He doesn't know how to walk down the fucking stairs, but he can create something in a fucking test tube. Yeah. That's where it comes from, mate. I'm telling you now, someone who gets in the car and doesn't know how to work the seatbelt. Yeah. That's where it comes from.
Yeah. And people want to make use of good Latin.
You hate me for this, don't you?
Oh, no.
You do.
You can take the piss out. I don't know him. I don't know John from fucking Cincinnati who fucking came up with the name. Yeah. I'm going to find that out, actually. I'm going to find out who made up that name. They produce root protection and probiotic effects. So there's a big conversation to be had about microbes, but not in the way you think. We all know that they're good for the plants. We all know that they work well. But what point are we wasting money? What point is we adding too much? And that's how he finishes. Less is more. Especially with trichoderma, which is, again, another form. Coffee grounds often get white mold, and he said that's a form of trichoderma. It's likely to be trichoderma. So when you're using bacteria, don't go for everything and anything. It's like basically getting 4 different bottles of nitrogen and adding them all in, because it's different forms of nitrogen. We need to educate ourselves on the bacteria that we're using and become better growers because of it. And then that goes back to crop steering. You can crop steer without bacteria. So, here's one for you, Barry. You can wake up now. Next article is by Martina Kroll, A Planetary Reset Button.
I like the sound.
Do you want to flick to the article so you can have a look?
I'll push the button. Where is it?
What do you mean you push the button?
On the planet.
Will you?
Yeah.
I'm not sure it is. It's probably about 10 pages forward. But this is sort of, I've only written 3 sentences because it's just a discussion that I wanted to have with you. Do you think that this lockdown for the last 10 weeks, the proper lockdown for 10 weeks anyway, do you think that the planet has had a chance to reset?
Yeah.
What has made you think that?
Just everything, isn't it? Less cars on the road. Everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything.
Well, we spoke about
less pollution, just... It's unbelievable, isn't it? How many cars, boats, planes, trains, tractors,
automobiles
are on the road, and everything like that. And
we said, didn't we? We don't know if sometimes when you're in a situation, you can just think of weird stuff and you can imagine
what conspiracy
stuff.
Did you come out with that? I've heard loads of conspiracies.
No, but when you're outside your house in the middle of lockdown, when there's literally
hardly
any cars,
Stephen are in the middle of Toxteth now. And it's like a bit of a concrete jungle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And during lockdown, we both came to work this day. We had a little bit of sorting out to do. We kept our distance from each other. But we both giggled and laughed because we don't really hear that many birds. We stood outside and we laughed to each other, didn't we? Because
like being
it was that
Eden
quiet and that silent. You could just hear birds for miles. And it was good. It's good. You know what I mean? Where did them birds... See, this is the thing. Are them birds always there, but just drowned
out by the noise, yeah.
Drowned out by the noise, and it doesn't affect them, and they're just there and they're happy, and we just can't hear it, but it was nice to hear it.
And we had the good
weather.
Nice,
yeah.
And it just seemed...
But you see all these pictures, don't you, of all these... Where is it, the fucking certain country? You can see
Hong
the Himalayas.
Kong or Japan or
you know
India.
I mean?
It'll be, if it's the Himalayas, it'll be India.
They've never been able to see them before.
They've never seen the mountains in like 40 years. And then halfway
I seen
into
another
lockdown,
picture the other day.
You could see the Himalayas.
In China, and it was taken from skyscraper.
Yeah.
And it was 2 pictures next to each other. One was 5 years ago and one was today. And it was just like fog. It just looked, the whole city just looked fucking miserable.
Yeah, I think it's like smog, isn't it?
And then on the other one, it looked fucking lovely. You know what I mean?
So, you'd have thought it was the other
obviously,
way around. It's had some sort of effect.
It's had some sort of good effect, hasn't it, really? Let's have it right. If you hands down.
Well, somebody, I don't know where
it's a bad situation, but if you look at something that good that has come out of it, is that the world has a chance to have a break from it. You know what I mean? From us.
I have read, though, or not me, somebody mentioned to me in passing that the actual effect on the earth hasn't been that huge. Like, we've been off for 8-10 weeks, and we've consumed a lot less. There's a lot less fossil fuel consumption is what I meant, and we're putting less shit into the atmosphere. But somebody said, and I don't know where they got it from, but they said it's actually not had a massive, huge positive impact on the planet. It's been better than what we were doing, but it's not had a massive positive effect. But it's got to have. The whole world.
I can understand what people say though, because just using electric in your house has an impact, doesn't it?
So if we use more electricity.
So if everyone's in their houses now, and everyone, I can guarantee it, has been in their house for the past 8 weeks playing on Macs, PlayStations, Xboxes, phones, everything like that.
Cooking more.
You're in your house more. So I can understand that everyone's got out the cars, but
to produce electricity, you need to burn
most houses,
fuels.
if you look at most houses where normal people and they go to the 9-to-5 jobs, their houses are just deserted, aren't they, from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night.
What I saved in fuel, definitely spent on Lecky.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there you go. It might be one of them where you think, look, there's no pollution, but in the same breath, has it had an effect somewhere else?
Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. One of the things I've picked up on is fruit pickers. Have you seen this in the news a good few weeks ago?
No.
They didn't have enough people to pick the fruit, because a lot of migrants and a lot of our migrant workers couldn't come over because it was lockdown. So there weren't enough people to do the job. Now, we're not a political show, but I just thought I wanted to mention that we give migrants a really bad time. On the whole, we give migrants a really hard time, don't we? And every culture does. Migrants and new people, and it's not good in inverted commas. You know what I mean? It's like the migrants coming and taking all of our jobs. So just on that point, when people say the migrants, they come and they take our jobs, they didn't come because they were on lockdown, and there wasn't enough people to do the fucking jobs. Do you know what I mean? So it's like tiny ecosystems. Exactly. And you know what? It was lovely. It was hot. There just wasn't enough people to do the job, or they didn't want to do it. And fruit picking, that's your strawberries, that's everything that the UK produces in terms of fruit, we didn't have enough of, and we could potentially still have shortages of it because it's rotten now because it's been left on the stem for too long. So just thought I'd drop that into anyone who naturally thinks migrants are just a bad thing and they're a hindrance to the NHS and blah, 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 blah. We didn't have enough of them we didn't have enough UK people to pick the fruit, and the migrants come, pick the fruit so that everyone can eat the strawberries for Wimbledon. So just a little different aspect and a different look at a topic there. Something else that she mentions is growing enough food to feed ourselves. A lot of people, and especially Garden Culture as a magazine, is saying this is a great opportunity for people to grow more salads, more plants, vegetables, fruits. We should learn to feed ourselves. Now, I just want to put like a statement out there that it's great. Grow your own herbs to put onto your cooking. Grow a vegetable or grow a select few fruits if you can. Whatever it is takes your fancy. Use AutoPots because they're brilliant. But some of them are saying this shows how fragile our food system is. We need to all be able to grow our own food so we can feed ourselves. But people shouldn't get it twisted that we can grow enough food to feed ourselves.
Yeah.
It won't happen. There'll be a counter argument saying, yeah, but Barry, if we get together in our little square, you grow potatoes and I'll grow the strawberries and do this and do that. You still wouldn't have enough. Yeah. Because
I grow my own, but I only grow. I'll eat loads of.
You've grown chilies. You've had 10 weeks there.
But on a daily basis, I'll eat onion, tomato, spring onion, lettuce.
Yeah.
And I'll eat strawberries and shit like that. Strawberries are hard because my strawberry plants haven't fruited this year up to now. But
you did it.
I still go to the supermarket and buy veg and fruit.
Do you ever buy strawberries in November?
I tend to. I've got lettuce and tomato in the house that I know I've got there permanently. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can say to people, grow your own, but you don't have to grow every bit of fruit and veg that you've got because it'd be fucking impossible. But it's nice just to go, do you know what? I've got tomatoes out there that I've grown myself.
Yeah.
Have some of them.
Yeah.
Pull a few spring onions
But imagine
out.
you had to grow
It's that fucking
all
easy.
tomatoes.
What's outside our shop?
Radish.
We've got
carrot.
radish.
Follow us on
spring
Instagram.
onion, carrot. I think Brian's banged a few fucking taters in it.
You've said that before.
I think
Lavender.
Lavender.
Yeah.
We have. It is easy.
It's easy to grow your own food, but it is not easy to feed your family.
Here's one for you, though.
Is that
Someone
rain?
Yeah.
Is it rain, is it?
Yeah. Someone came to us the other night and they seen me tomatoes and me chilies in the garden, and I've got them all lined up and they're fucking loving life. And they went, oh, fuck that. How'd you eat that? And I went, with me mouth. And they went, no, I mean, fucking spiders and all that in it. And I just burst into fits of laughter and went like, what the fuck are you talking about? And when you drive down a fucking motorway and there's fields either side of you, that's all your fucking veg in them fields. Getting polluted by the fucking cars, getting sprayed by the farmer with fucking pesticides. Bear in mind, there's umpteen fucking rabbits running through the field eating half of it. There's fucking mice, rats, fucking everything.
Beetles.
I said, it is what it is. I said, I know they're in my garden. They're probably cleaner than that farmer's field, mate.
They definitely are cleaner, yeah.
But it's mad, innit? Just how people think.
Oh, you'll have to tell me who that was
Do you
later.
know what I mean?
That's funny. The spiders crawling all over me.
No, they looked at them and went, yeah, do you really eat them?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do you really eat them? And I just looked at them and thought, do I really eat them? You fucking bananas.
Yeah, and I just grow them just because
I just grow them because they look nice and I can grow them, yeah.
But we should all be growing our own food in terms of...
But you don't have to grow everything. If you eat tomatoes 4 days a week on salads, then grow tomatoes.
Yeah.
And you'll get good at it and you'll enjoy them better. Yeah. You'll enjoy them more.
But in terms of all of us getting together, growing all of our own food as a cooperative, it's not possible. We're not farmers.
No.
Just as an example, if our little community and we got the...
If me and you paired up now and said, come ahead then, you do this in your garden, I'll do that in my garden. And you done spring onion and lettuce. Yeah. And I done potatoes. Yeah. That was it. Well, what happens if I have a problem and all the potatoes are fucking finished?
Oh, you don't get any of my spring onions or lettuce.
There you go.
You're not giving me any potatoes.
Fucking World War III, isn't it?
Yeah. And then,
or if you do give me it, we're going to be sat there eating fucking spring onion.
And lettuce.
Yeah. There's no potatoes.
No.
So don't try and fucking...
It's those arguments like, we should all grow our own food. It's like, it's not going to happen, mate. It's the same argument for growing organics. Growing organics takes much more intensive labour, and it requires bigger fields. We could not grow the planet's food organically. It's impossible. I will
just get yourself a tomato plant, a few spring onions. You only need a couple of pots for them.
Yeah,
strawberries in a hanging basket or on the floor with the hay and stuff like that, and maybe put 4 nice little plant pots on your window ledge with your herbs. So when you're doing your steaks and your fish and your salmons and that little bit of this, little bit of that, and you've grew it yourself.
That's what you're frying your steak. Sound. So planetary reset button. Do you think the planet's had a reset? Make sure get some messages into us.
Was that a question or was you just like...
I was just rabbit on. Yeah. But Barry does think it's been in a way, yeah. I think... You
know what I think it's been a reset for? People. Forget the pollution. Forget how much we've consumed and everything. It's an eye-opener for everyone to say, this is how vulnerable we are.
Yeah.
This is something that we can't even see. It's a fucking... What is it? It's a bacteria.
Yeah. A virus,
A virus, like a bacteria. You can't see it.
Yeah.
And look at it, man. It's dropping us.
And when all's said and done, if anyone's had anybody that knows anybody that has died because of corona, then this means nothing to you. And it's one of the most tragic thing that you can go through. But on the grand scheme of things, it hasn't been as lethal as some other things in the past. And there's every chance that a more lethal virus could come out. So it's had a change. How often are we washing our hands now?
It's not that. It's like, and I heard loads of people saying it, and I half agree with them. We spend that much time and money, this whole world as a collective, trying to find what's beyond the moon. What's that? We don't even know what's in our own fucking planet. You know what I mean? Something that's simple and that easy. And do you know what I mean? Do we really know? Do we really need to know what's on the other side of the moon? We don't, do we? It doesn't affect us.
The other half of the moon.
Do you know what I mean? It's like people go on about the world's flat and stuff like that. And I just think to myself, you know, if they come on the telly tomorrow on the news and said, the world's flat, I'd say, is it? Yeah.
Fucking hell.
And what? Like, nothing's changed for me.
Brian, we still need the pallet and natural.
Yeah.
We need 2 all mix and top up the A and B.
It doesn't change nothing, does it?
Brian says, but the world's flat. Oh, and what?
But it's like, doesn't change nothing. It doesn't. The world's not flat because everything in the fucking sky is round. You know, we're not the only flat fucking thing. Yeah, it's not.
But definitely a people reset. Definitely a people reset. I've definitely had a reset. I feel
more than the planet reset. I think it's a people reset.
I think it's needed. You know what needs to happen? People need to continue living a little bit the lockdown life. Spend more time with your family. I know I will be, and appreciate it a lot more. To round off, Everest Fernandez, just for growers, he talks about heat, the basics. So there's 3 types of heat. Moving on. Radiant heat, convection heat, and conductive heat. Now, when I say there's 3 types of heat, there's quite a few different types of heat, but they're the ones that are applicable to you in your grow room. First of all, radiant heat. This is the heat that warms up your plants directly. Early LEDs used to mark themselves as better because they have less heat than HPS, but now, like your SANlights, they've introduced infrared diodes to put heat back in, because what they were doing is they weren't giving any radiant heat to the plants. Transpiration slowed right down. People didn't know what to do. The plants were just slower. They need to transpire. So they've started introducing infrared diodes. That is an example of radiant heat. The sun is radiant heat. And I was actually passed the magazine over because one out of all the writers for garden culture, Everest has a way of writing that shouldn't really be ad-libbed. It should just be said as is, because he's got a very good way of communicating. And I wanted to read this first bit about the sun, if I can find it. So I am talking slowly so I can flick to the page. Radiant heat. So I want to talk about the sun because it's a good little paragraph. So the most important point is expanded like this. The sun is 93 million miles away, deep in a vacuum of space. The heat, in inverted commas, that we experience when the sun's rays reach the nerves on our skin is a product of this type of radiation. Photons radiate out from the sun. Photons are tiny quantum packets of energy. And as Earthlings, we're primarily concerned with ultraviolet, PAR, which is photosynthetic active radiation, and infrared photons. This energy travels through space at the speed of light, and when it hits our faces, we absorb some of that energy. Our nerves sense this, and our brains declare heat. Grow lights vary considerably in the type of radiation they emit, and he goes on to talk about the LEDs. Radiant heat increases the internal temperature of your plants, and this sets the tempo for all sorts of metabolic processes. However, radiation is just one heat-generating phenomenon. So radiant heat, different from the next type of heat, which is convection. Convection heat requires a liquid or a gas as a transport mechanism. Convection heat cannot travel through a vacuum, as it is what convection heat is: particles passing on their energy to the next particle. Grow rooms produce a lot of convected heat, and so this is where reflectors can really play their part in how the heat is distributed. So if you've got something like the Matrix or the Garden High Pro shades, the square, they've got a vent on the top, the heat is allowed to escape and puts less towards the plant. So you've got your radiant heat from the lights, from the photons. Then you've got convection heat, which is the particles in a liquid or a gas knocking onto each other. And then you've got conductive heat. Now, conductive heat is the transfer within a material or between touching materials. As an example, plant pots will transfer conductive heat to the grow media. Grow media transfers that to the roots within them. And it's like he says, that's just the main points on heat: radiant, convection, and conduction. And I wanted to read out this last little part. So this is a good grower's tip. A quick fix for lack of infrared or radiant heat. So this is in the winter or when using LEDs, especially in the vegetative cycle, is to add CalMag. The low transpiration rates associated with cooler internal plant temperatures leads to less calcium being uptaken. But too much calcium in a nutrient solution causes its own issues, such as competing with phosphorus, which is why growers who rely on this band-aid often become unstuck during the flowering phase when phosphorus is in higher demand. So they're the different types of heat. And what basically the article is, what it wants you to do is think about heat differently. Heat is not good or bad. It's whatever you want it to be. So heat in the winter is very good. Heat in the summer from your grow light is bad. It's subjective to where you're using it. And one of the best points that I want to finish on with this is when LED manufacturers talk about how efficient their LEDs are, if they haven't got these infrared diodes that can slightly heat up and increase transpiration, they're saying we'll save you this amount of money compared to HPS. But how does that efficiency work out when you've got to buy the LED, pay the extra money, put it into your room, then you realize the plants are growing slowly. So then you've got to invest in a heater. And in winter, it's going to be a big heater. It could be a 600 or 700 or a 2,000 watt heater. And it's coming on for 12 or 18 hours a day. So,
and if you've done it to save money, you may as well have just stuck with HPS.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what the point he's making. Let's think about the heat, especially in winter or in the summer, and think about the types of heat: radiant, convection, conductive. What heat have you got in your grow room? How can you get rid of it? How can you make use of it? He also says when you do a trial with LEDs, when you do side by side with HPS and LED, the HPS warms the air and the LED can actually look as though it's doing better. But if you swap the HPS for another LED, the plant might not do as well.
Yeah.
So don't do side by side trials of HPS and LED, because the heat from the HPS is going to enhance the LED.
Yeah.
Then when you take the LED away,
it's not going to do as
the
well.
heat of the HPS, and it's not going to do as well yet. So a lot of stuff to think about there, and all linked to plant steering.
I like plant steering.
Do you? Yeah. You like car steering as well, don't you?
It's all right.
So, Barry, that concludes podcast 210.
Definitely never make it to 420.
Oof, 420. Could we make it to 420? So
I reckon if we skip 229 now, I reckon we can make it for next week.
We could do just
Can't we just jump
straight
to it?
Just jump on the podcast next week and just go. So today's podcast 211. It's on all the partners. Thank you all the partners, and we'll see you next week. And then just do podcast 212. So this week's podcast is one about heat in your grow room. Don't have too much of it. Be good. See you later, and just do like sentences of podcasts. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Sound well. Listen, it is this week.
It's been eventful.
Feels
I've enjoyed it.
A bit more normal.
Last week just felt
weird.
It just felt like I didn't not have it in me, but just felt alien.
You know what it was? It was first gear, mate. This week we're in second gear. Next week we take up to third gear.
I like it.
All right.
And
Thank you.
We wouldn't have it next week if it weren't for me stopping you.
All right. Barry.
Right, that is it.
We will see you all next week. And
enjoy your weekends.
Take it easy. From me, Steve.
And myself, Barry.
Oh, very nice. See you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.